My name is Leo Vance. I'm 25. You're probably not going to believe this, but I've somehow been pulled into the world of a novel. My current identity? The contract husband of an Ice Queen CEO. And to make matters worse, I'm just a stand-in for the one that got away. In the original story, my jealousy and obsession get so bad that I end up in a mental institution. Yeah, no thanks. Someone else can play the tragic hero. I'm out. This system wants me to win over the female lead? Screw that. I'm just going to squeeze her for a massive settlement and get the hell out of here. Once I get my hands on that $6. 5 million, I'm gone. A life of luxury awaits. Young, rich, and single. What's not to love? My name is Leo Vance. One second, I was stressing about next month's rent, and the next, I was standing in a spacious, gleaming luxury kitchen. The cold marble countertop felt terrifyingly real. Leo, what are you spacing out for? Wash the vegetables. A cool voice sliced through the air from behind me. I spun around to see a woman in a silk robe frowning at me. Isabel Sterling, the CEO from this corporate romance novel, and my current wife. Memories flooded my mind, a tidal wave of information. I had become the stand-in husband from the book, the guy who looked just enough like her first love to be a placeholder and who ultimately ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Right, on it, I heard myself say, turning on the faucet automatically. As I mechanically rinsed a head of lettuce, a flat, electronic voice echoed in my mind. System binding complete. Mission issued. Host must reject the settlement offer and successfully win the affection of the female lead, Isabel Sterling, for a happily ever after. Mission failure penalty. Inability to return to your original world. My hand twitched, splashing water on my shirt. Was this some kind of joke? The original Leo was institutionalized precisely because he refused to let go, pulling one insane stunt after another to keep Isabel's attention. Just the thought of that place sent a chill down my spine. System, can I just take the money and run? I asked tentatively in my head. Warning, refusing the mission will lead to unpredictable consequences. Just then, Isabel's voice cut in again. Oh, and put this on. I turned. She was holding out a black face mask. My new memory supplied the context instantly. Today was the day her old flame, Julian, was returning from abroad. She was cooking for him personally, and my role in this little drama was bodyguard. Julian doesn't know I'm married, Isabel said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She didn't even look at me. During dinner, you'll stand by the door. Just act like security. I nodded obediently and took the mask. Isabel seemed a little surprised by my easy compliance, giving me a quick, searching look before turning away. According to the novel, this was the moment I was supposed to be hiding my anguish behind a stoic facade, only to lose control when I saw Julian, earning Isabel's disgust. But the new me only cared about one thing. Just how many zeros were on that legendary settlement check. The doorbell rang at 7 o'clock sharp. Isabel practically ran to the door. I'd never seen such a radiant smile on the face of the notoriously cold CEO. Julian, welcome back, she said, her voice so soft it was almost a whisper. Izzy, it's been too long. The man who entered had a warm, magnetic voice. I kept my head down, standing in the corner and sizing up the legendary ex-boyfriend from the corner of my eye. Julian Croft was, as described, tall like me, with handsome, refined features. A custom-tailored suit accentuated his athletic build. It was no wonder Isabel had been hung up on him for all these years. He shrugged off his overcoat and, without even looking, held it out in my direction. Hang this up. The casual entitlement in his voice was that of someone addressing a restaurant busboy. The original Leo would have been gutted by the insult. Me? I was just calculating the cost of the coat. It looked like high-end cashmere, probably worth more than 3 months of my old salary. Isabel, who had changed into an elegant black dress, her hair swept up to reveal the delicate line of her neck, noticed the exchange. I had to admit, she was captivating, a cold demeanor paired with a stunning figure, a contradictory and lethal combination. Julian, don't trouble him. Give it to me, she said with a smile, taking the coat and hanging it up herself, never once glancing my way. The dining table was set with 4 exquisite dishes, candles flickering, the atmosphere thick with romantic tension. I stood like a ghost in the shadows, watching them talk and laugh. Remember that little pizza place we used to go to in college? It's still there. I stopped by a few days ago, Julian said with a smile. Really? Is her pepperoni still the best? Isabel's eyes lit up. Tastes exactly the same. The owner even asked about you, Julian said, looking at her tenderly. I told him you were a big-shot CEO now. He didn't believe me, said the girl who always got sauce all over her face couldn't possibly be a CEO. Isabel laughed, a rare blush creeping up her cheeks. I watched the scene unfold with zero emotion, except for growing hunger. That pan-seared sea base looked incredible. As its aroma wafted over, my stomach let out an embarrassing grumble. In the quiet dining room, the sound was subtle but unmistakable. Isabel's smile faltered. She shot me a warning glare. I immediately straightened up, adopting the poker face of a professional bodyguard. Julian seemed to notice something. Izzy, your security is very professional. Flawless posture. He was handpicked by the company, Isabel said dismissively, quickly changing the subject. So, what are your plans now that you're back? I've had a few offers from investment banks, but I'm thinking of starting my own venture, Julian said confidently. It's a medtech AI project with a lot of potential. If you need investors, just let me know, Isabel offered without a moment's hesitation. I whistled silently. In the novel, Isabel poured millions into this project, only to lose it all. It was the original Leo who found a way to bail her out, a gesture for which he received zero thanks. System, I couldn't help but ask in my head, if I choose to take the settlement now, how much would I actually get? The system paused, as if surprised by such a materialistic question during a romantic reunion. According to the original plot, Isabel Sterling is willing to pay $5 million to dissolve the contract. $5 million. My knees went weak, and I had to steady myself against the wall. In my old life, I could have worked myself to death and never seen a fraction of that amount. Are you all right? Julian suddenly asked, looking over at me. Isabel grew tense, terrified I was about to blow my cover. He might have low blood sugar. Why don't you go rest in the kitchen? The last part was directed at me, her eyes filled with warning. I was more than happy to escape. After a slight bow, I hurried to the kitchen. I had just opened a fridge to find something to eat when I heard Isabel's phone ring. What? There's a problem with the project? I'm on my way to the office now. Her voice was sharp and urgent. A moment later, Isabel appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression once again that of a cool-headed executive. There's an emergency at the office. I have to go. You. She hesitated. Stay here and help clean up, then see yourself out. She rushed off without a proper goodbye to Julian. I watched her go, my mind already racing. It was time to bring up the divorce. $5 million was enough to live like a king in this world. Winning her over? Someone else could have that job. Just as I was getting lost in my millionaire daydreams, Julian walked into the kitchen. Need a hand? He asked with a surprisingly friendly smile. No, Mr. Croft. Please relax. I've got it, I said quickly. But Julian just leaned against the doorframe, studying me. Are you really a bodyguard? Your hands are too fine. They don't look like they've ever seen a day of hard labor. My heart skipped a beat. The novel mentioned he was incredibly observant. I couldn't believe he'd spotted a flaw so quickly. Ex-Special Forces. I recited from the background info the system provided. Mrs. Sterling hired me recently. Is that so? Julian took a step closer and, without warning, reached out and pulled off my mask. Caught completely off guard, my face was exposed under the bright kitchen lights. Julian's expression shifted from curiosity to shock, his pupils constricting. Who are you? I instinctively stepped back, alarms blaring in my head. This is bad. The plot is going off the rails. Warning, uncontrolled plot deviation detected. Just then my phone buzzed. A bank notification lit up the screen. A wire transfer of $5,000,000 has been received by account ending in 8888. Current balance, $5,003,287.36. I stared at the long string of numbers, my eyes wide, my breath caught in my throat. That money. Julian, who had also seen the notification, looked even more bewildered. Why would Izzy send you so much money? I looked up, met his gaze, and, inspired, gave him a mysterious smile. It's a settlement. A settlement? You and Izzy. Julian's face changed in an instant. What is your relationship? I calmly unclipped the fake security badge from my jacket. Legally speaking, we're married, I said breezily. But that's about to end. Julian was too stunned to speak. In my head, the system's warnings were reaching a fever pitch. Severe warning. Host is deviating from the primary mission. Cease immediately. But at that moment, staring at the number in my bank account, I had never felt more clear-headed or alive. Who the hell would want to go back? I was young, capable, single, and rich. Why wouldn't I want to stay here? To hell with the old flame. To hell with being a substitute. I was taking this $5 million and starting my new, fabulous life. Julian looked like he'd been struck by lightning. The handsome face cycled through a storm of emotions. Shock, disbelief, and finally, a raw anger, as if he'd been personally betrayed. You're married? He choked out, his fingers unconsciously tightening around the wine glass he was holding. Since when? I glanced at his white knuckles and chuckled internally. In the book, this guy played it cool, keeping Isabel on the hook for years. This jealous reaction was a new twist. A year ago, I answered truthfully, running the timeline through my head. In the original story, Isabel married my character in a fit of pique after Julian rejected her. She kept it a complete secret, not even telling her closest assistant. Julian took a deep breath, then let out a cold laugh. So, you're a substitute. A replacement she found to make me angry? Dude, that was blunt, but I wasn't offended in the slightest. Instead, I nodded with a cheerful smile. Mr. Croft, you see things so clearly. He was clearly not expecting me to be so nonchalant and was momentarily lost for words. I took the opportunity to pull out my phone and double-check the balance. Yep, $5 million, sitting right there in my account. The string of zeros was a beautiful sight. Well, since you know everything, I said politely, I'll be on my way. The dishes are in the sink. Mrs. Sterling said a cleaning service would handle them. I turned to leave, completely ignoring the complex, unreadable stare Julian was boring into my back. The moment I stepped out of the mansion, a cool evening breeze hit my face. I took a deep breath of sweet, free air, feeling every cell in my body rejoice. $5 million! I could buy so many pepperoni pizzas with that. In my old life, I worked until I was sick just to save for a down payment. Now I was a multimillionaire. Warning. Host is deviating from the mission timeline. Please return to the mansion immediately and compete with Julian Croft for the female lead's attention. The system's voice was cold, but I could almost detect a hint of panic in its robotic tone. Listen, system, I said in my head, feeling magnanimous as I strolled down the tree-lined street of the wealthy neighborhood. It's obvious Isabel still has feelings for Julian. If I stick around, I'm just asking for trouble. Besides, I paused, pulling out my phone and opening the calculator app. Look at this. $5 million in the bank, even at a measly 3% interest, is $150,000 a year. That's over $400 a day. I can sleep in, eat whatever I want, travel wherever I want, all without lifting a finger. What's not to love about that? The system was silent for a few seconds before offering a prompt that nearly made me jump for joy. If the host insists on the settlement route, a hidden storyline will be activated. The extravagant life. Mission objective. Spend $1 million in a reasonable manner within 3 months. Reward. Permanent title, financially independent, and an additional surprise. My eyes lit up. A mission to spend money. Was this for real? I might not be good at much, but spending money was a talent I was born with. I accept, I declared without hesitation. But what's the definition of reasonable manner? Donations, gambling, and malicious waste are prohibited. All expenditures must be for tangible goods or services. Got it. So I just had to go on a massive shopping spree. Just as I was gleefully planning my first purchase, a black Mercedes pulled up silently beside me. The window rolled down to reveal Isabel's frosty face. Get in, she commanded, her voice colder than the night air. I opened the door and slipped into the passenger seat. The car was filled with her signature perfume, a blend of cedarwood and white musk, as elegant and chilly as she was. Julian called me, she said, starting the car. Her voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of pressure. What exactly did you tell him? The truth, I answered honestly after buckling up. He recognized me. There was no hiding it. Isabel's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. The car shot forward, pinning me to my seat. Leo, we had an agreement, she said, her words clipped. During our marriage, you were not to reveal our relationship to anyone. Julian figured it out first, I said with a helpless shrug. He pulled off my mask and saw the bank transfer notification from you. Isabel faltered, clearly not expecting that turn of events. The car fell silent, filled only by the low hum of the engine. After a long moment, she asked, "The money. You received it?" "Yes, I did. Thank you for your generosity, Mrs. Sterling," I said sincerely. "And don't worry, I'm a man of my word. We can file the divorce papers tomorrow." Isabel shot me a complicated look. According to the book, I should have been weeping, begging her not to leave me, maybe even threatening self-harm. She was likely prepared for a messy, drawn-out fight, not my cheerful cooperation. "You have nothing else to say?" she asked, a hint of hesitation in her voice. I thought for a moment. "Do you need to bring any documents? I've got my ID and everything. What time worked for you tomorrow?" Isabel was speechless. The car suddenly swerved onto a quiet side street and screeched to a halt. She turned to face me, her gaze sharp, as if trying to dissect my brain to see what was going on inside. "Leo, you're acting very strange," she concluded. "This isn't like you." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept a smile on my face. People change. Since your heart clearly belongs to someone else, there's no point in me forcing the issue. It's better to take the money and walk away. Everyone's happy. She stared at me for a while longer, then leaned in close. Her beautiful face was suddenly right in front of mine, so close I could count her long, dark eyelashes. "Are you really Leo?" she whispered, her breath warm against my cheek. Alarms went off in my head, but I remained outwardly calm. The one and only. Isabel leaned back into her seat, looking thoughtful as she tapped her fingers on the steering wheel. "Since the money has been transferred," she finally said, her tone shifting back to business, "I'll have my lawyer send you the divorce agreement tomorrow. However," she paused, her voice hardening, "until Julian has fully accepted my feelings, we need to maintain the appearance of our marriage." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means we'll be legally divorced, but we keep it a secret for now," she explained, "especially from Julian. You admitting our relationship today threw a wrench in my plans. I need time to fix it." I frowned. "Mrs. Sterling, I don't think that was part of our agreement." "I'll add another $1.5 million, Isabel said flatly. "Pretend until Julian and I are officially together. 3 months, max." My heart did an ungraceful leap. $1.5 million? On top of the $5 million, that was $6.5 million. I couldn't spend that in 3 lifetimes. Hidden mission updated. Spend $2. $5 million in a reasonable manner within 3 months. Reward upgraded. The system's prompt was perfectly timed. I suppressed my inner glee and tried to look conflicted. "I don't know. Mr. Croft already knows about me. How are we supposed to pull this off?" "That's your problem to solve," Isabel said, starting the car again. "Just be a better actor. Don't screw it up. Because if you do..." She shot me a cold glare. "The penalty for breach of contract is 3 times the settlement amount." I immediately shut my mouth. Wow, this woman was ruthless. I hadn't even had a chance to warm up the money, and she was already threatening to make me pay back $15 million. The car moved back onto the main road in silence. I watched the neon lights blur past the window, my mind racing. A fake, secret divorce meant I had to keep playing this part. But the money was so good. "I'll need a supplemental agreement," I finally said. "It should clearly state the duration, my specific responsibilities, and the payment clauses." Isabel gave me a surprised look, as if she hadn't expected me to negotiate. "Go. First, the arrangement lasts a maximum of 3 months. Any time over that, you pay me an extra $10,000 a day. Second, I will only appear at necessary events. I'm not on call 24/7. Third," I took a deep breath. "If Mr. Croft asks me directly, I reserve the right to tell him the truth." Isabel considered it for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, but I have conditions, too. During this period, you cannot publicly disclose our divorce, and you can't be seen in any compromising situations with other women. I don't want any trouble from the tabloids." "Deal," I said, extending my hand. She hesitated for a second before shaking it. Her fingers were slender but strong, her palm cool to the touch. Just then, her phone rang. The name Julian flashed on the car's display. Isabel answered immediately, her voice instantly softening. Hello. Yes, I finished up at the office. No, it was just a small issue with a project. Have you eaten? I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you tonight. I tactfully turned to look out the window, marveling at her ability to switch personas so quickly. A true corporate shark. When she finally hung up, we had arrived at my apartment building, a high-end complex she had arranged for me when we got married. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow, she said, handing me a black card. Use this for any necessary expenses during our arrangement. And keep the receipts. I took the card, my eyes widening. A black card with no limit. The stuff of legends. Before getting out, I turned back. Mrs. Sterling, can I ask you a question? She raised an eyebrow. Why are you so? I searched for the right word. Fixated on Julian. Her gaze softened, and her voice became quiet. He was my first love, the only person I've ever truly loved. We broke up because of a misunderstanding. I don't want to make that mistake again. I nodded and didn't say anything more. It wasn't until I was soaking in the whirlpool tub in my apartment that I let out a cynical laugh. According to the book, there was no misunderstanding. Julian had dumped Isabel back then because her family wasn't wealthy or powerful enough for his ambitions. He'd gone abroad and married into money. He was back now because he'd heard she was the CEO of a multinational corporation. He was a gold digger, plain and simple. How could a woman so sharp in the boardroom be so blind in her personal life? But that wasn't my problem. I sank back into the warm water, feeling giddy. $6.5 million and a limitless black card. For that, I'd pretend to be divorced for 3 months, 3 years, whatever she wanted. After my bath, I opened my laptop to start drafting my extravagant life plan. First things first, a new place to live. This apartment was nice, but it was in Isabel's name. I needed my own space. Then a car. I was done with a lifetime of cramming into subways. And then a world tour, Michelin-starred restaurants, bespoke suits. As I was lost in my fantasy, the doorbell rang. Who could be this late? I peeked through the peephole and froze. It was Julian, standing outside my door with a grim expression. How did he find me? New mission. Handle Julian Croft's probing while maintaining the facade of your relationship with Isabel Sterling. Reward, plus 10 acting skill points. The system's prompt snapped me back to reality. Showtime already? ####3 taking a deep breath. I composed my expression and opened the door. Mr. Croft, I feigned surprise. What can I do for you this late? Julian's sharp eyes swept over my bathrobe, then glanced inside the apartment. Aren't you going to invite me in? I stepped aside to let him in, my mind racing to come up with a strategy. A late-night visit from the Jilted Ex was definitely not a social call. The apartment, decorated by Isabel, was a study in minimalist chic, all blacks, whites, and grays, as cold and impersonal as a hotel suite. Julian wandered through the living room, his posture as elegant as if he owned the place, before settling onto the sofa. Tea or coffee? I asked out of politeness. Neither, he said, getting straight to the point. I'm here to understand what's really going on between you and Izzy. I sat across from him, the belt of my bathrobe loosely tied, revealing a sliver of my chest. The novel mentioned that Julian despised anything he considered crass or low class. It's just as you see it, I said with a shrug. I'm just a guy who got paid to do a job. His eyes narrowed. Getting paid to do a job requires marriage. A marriage of convenience. I lied smoothly. Mrs. Sterling needed a shield against her family's matchmaking, and I needed the money. A mutually beneficial arrangement. This was only a half-truth. While shielding her from family pressure was a factor, the main reason Isabel had married me was to spite Julian. And now, all I cared about was the money. Julian was skeptical. Izzy transferred $5 million to you. What kind of marriage of convenience costs that much? My heart stuttered. I hadn't realized he'd seen the exact amount. But my smile only widened. That includes a non-disclosure agreement and a severance package. After all, once this marriage is over, I have to disappear from her life completely, right? I got up and poured myself a glass of whiskey from the bar card, intentionally letting my robe gape open a little wider. As predicted, Julian's brow furrowed in disapproval. When did you get divorced? He asked suddenly. I took a sip of the amber liquid, savoring the burn as it went down. We just agreed to the terms today. The paperwork hasn't been filed yet. It was a clever bit of phrasing, framing the divorce as an ongoing process. It wasn't a complete lie, but it was certainly misleading. Julian fell silent for a moment before changing tactics. Do you know about my history with Izzy? I've heard a little, I said, swirling my drink. The one that got away. Her first love. Then do you know why we broke up? I thought I know better than you do, but said aloud. Mrs. Sterling didn't go into detail. Julian offered a bitter smile. I went abroad for my graduate studies, and she misunderstood, thinking I'd found someone else. She cut off all contact before I could explain. I've been trying to win her back ever since. What a masterful rewriting of history. In the book, he had dumped a then-student Isabel for a wealthier heiress overseas. But I feigned a sympathetic expression. I see. No wonder she's never been able to forget you. Julian studied my face, searching for any crack in my performance. But I had the ultimate cheat sheet. I'd read the book. He wasn't going to trick me. Since you're getting a divorce anyway, he finally said, getting to his real point, I expect you to exit Izzy's life completely. Don't use your marriage as an excuse to keep bothering her. I almost laughed out loud. He was worried I'd get in the way of his gold digging. Rest assured, Mr. Croft, I said, raising my glass in a mock toast. I get paid, I do the job. Professional integrity. The moment the papers are signed, I'm gone. He seemed satisfied with that answer and finally stood to leave. After showing him out, I leaned against the door and let out a long sigh of relief. Mission complete, plus 10 acting skill points. Current level, novice, 10 out of 100. The system's notification surprised me. I was already a novice? Maybe I had a hidden talent for this. The next morning, Isabel's lawyer arrived with the documents. The terms of the separation agreement were shockingly generous. In addition to the $5 million already in my account, a clause stated that if I maintained the secret for 3 months, I would receive another $1 million. The penalty for breaking the agreement was 3 times the total amount. I signed without hesitation. The lawyer seemed surprised by how cooperative I was, giving me a few curious glances. Mrs. Sterling asked me to inform you. The lawyer said, packing away the documents, that there's a business gala tonight, and she requires your attendance. I raised an eyebrow. We just agreed yesterday that I'm not on call 24/7. The lawyer smiled. Mrs. Sterling said this qualifies as a necessary occasion, right? This wasn't going to be easy money. As soon as the lawyer left, I launched my extravagant life plan. First stop, real estate. I took an Uber straight to the sales office of the city's most exclusive new residential tower. Dressed in a designer suit I couldn't have afforded in my past life, and wearing a luxury watch I'd rented for the day, the rental fee, a cool $5,000, went straight onto Isabel's black card. I walked in ready to play the part. Good afternoon, sir. What kind of residence are you interested in? A sales director greeted me warmly. My eyes scanned the architectural model on the table, and I pointed to the most expensive unit, the crowning jewel of the building. The penthouse. Does it come with a helipad? The director's eyes lit up. Yes, it does. It's over 8,000 square feet with a private infinity pool and a rooftop garden. The views are unparalleled. You can see the entire city. Is it move-in ready? I cut him off. Yes, fully furnished and decorated. I'll take it, I said nonchalantly. The director nearly dropped his tablet. Sir, you don't want to see it first. Why would I? It's the best one, isn't it? I pulled out the black card. I'm paying in full. Can we get the paperwork done today? The director's face was flushed with excitement. Yes, absolutely. I'll get our legal team right away. 2 hours later, I had signed the contract and swiped the card for $43 million. Seeing that long string of zeros on the terminal made my hand tremble, but the feeling was incredible. So this was the simple, direct joy of being rich. Spending mission progress, $4. $3 million/$2. $5 million. Mission complete. Calculating bonus reward. Wait, I'd overspent. I blinked, remembering the system had updated the goal to $2.5 million last night. Oh well, I'd finished my 3-month mission in a single day. What was I supposed to do now? Focus on my acting career. Just as I was mentally kicking myself for the extra $1.8 million, the system chimed in again. Host has exceeded spending mission target by 172%. Activating hidden skill, Midas Touch. All future investment returns will be increased by 5%. My eyes widened. Now that was a useful skill. Even with all this money, Making money was the key to long-term security. After buying the penthouse, I went to a luxury car dealership. I was tempted by a flashy sports car, but then I remembered Isabel's rule about not being seen with other women. A sports car was practically an invitation for tabloid trouble, and I couldn't afford the penalty. I ended up choosing a discreet but luxurious SUV that set me back over $200,000. Compared to the penthouse, it felt like pocket change. That evening, Isabel's driver picked me up for the gala. I put on another rented designer tuxedo, this one 1800 day, and adjusted my bow tie in the mirror. The man looking back at me was tall and handsome, with a definite resemblance to the polished, elite look of Julian Croft. No wonder Isabel had chosen me as a stand-in. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of a five-star hotel, a glittering sea of champagne glasses and designer gowns. Isabel, stunning in a wine-red dress, took my arm as we entered, drawing the attention of the entire room. "Smile," she whispered, while simultaneously beaming at someone across the room. I followed her gaze, and, sure enough, there was Julian. He was talking to a group of business tycoons, but kept glancing in our direction. "Play along," Isabel hissed, pinching my arm. "He's watching." I immediately put on a look of adoration and tenderly tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Isabel flinched almost imperceptibly, but quickly recovered. "Mrs. Sterling, you're a lucky woman. Your husband is quite a catch," a balding executive said, coming over to offer a toast. Isabel smiled. "Mr. Lee, you're too kind. I hear you've been married for a year. How come we never heard about a wedding?" Her smile tightened. "We've both been very busy. We haven't made any plans." I jumped in at the perfect moment. Isabel's career is the priority. I support her completely. As I spoke, I gazed at her with all the affection I could muster. My new acting skill kicked in, and my eyes softened with a look of pure devotion. Isabel was visibly taken aback, a faint blush rising on her ears. This skill was definitely worth the points. Finally, Julian could no longer stand it and came over. He was wearing a deep blue suit that somehow perfectly complemented Isabel's red dress. "Izzy," he said, smiling at her before turning his gaze to me. "Mr. Vance, we meet again." I nodded in acknowledgement, deliberately letting my fingers graze the back of Isabel's hand. She shivered, but didn't pull away. "You two chat, I'll go get a drink," I said, making a show of giving them space, but Isabel held me back. "Let's go together," she said, then gave Julian an apologetic smile. "Excuse us for a moment." She dragged me over to the buffet table before letting go, her voice turning cold. "You overdid it." I blinked innocently. Wasn't the point to make him jealous? She shot me a glare, but didn't argue, instead picking up a glass of champagne. I watched the blush on her cheek and found it surprisingly amusing. This Ice Queen CEO wasn't as untouchable as she seemed. Halfway through the gala, I was hiding in a corner, enjoying some caviar, when a familiar voice called out, "Leo, is that really you?" I turned to see his slightly greasy-looking face. Kevin Ross, a guy from my college days. In the book, he was a sycophantic loser who eventually became one of Julian's lackeys. "Kev." I feigned surprise. "Long time no see." He eyed my designer suit with a mixture of envy and jealousy. "Heard you got married. Looks like you're doing all right for yourself, huh?" I just smiled and didn't respond. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Come on, man, give me the scoop. Who'd you marry?" "Samaris. I saw you talking with Isabel Sterling earlier." My internal alarms went off. Isabel wanted our marriage kept secret, and I couldn't let it slip. "Just a regular girl," I said vaguely. "And Mrs. Sterling is a business acquaintance." Kevin clearly didn't believe me, but he dropped it, though his eyes were still sizing me up. Just then, Isabel's voice cut in. "Leo, who's this?" I turned to see her approaching, her hand finding its way naturally into the crook of my arm. Kevin's eyes widened, darting between me and Isabel. His expression immediately turned fawning. "Mrs. Sterling, hello. I'm Kevin Ross, a college friend of Leo's." Isabel gave him a curt nod, then turned to me, her voice softening. "It's getting late. Shall we go?" I nodded in agreement and smiled at Kevin. "Good seeing you, man. We'll catch up later." As we left the ballroom, Isabel immediately dropped my arm, her expression returning to its usual cool reserve. "Stay away from that man in the future. You know him? He's Julian's new assistant," she said with a sneer. "He certainly knows how to climb." I was taken aback. In the book, Kevin didn't start working for Julian until much later. The timeline was shifting. In the car, Isabel rubbed her temples, looking exhausted. "You need to come with me to my family's estate tomorrow," she said suddenly. "It's a family dinner." I frowned. "Does that fall under the necessary occasion clause?" "I'll add 100,000, she said without opening her eyes. "Deal." As the city lights streaked past the window, I thought to myself that this arrangement wasn't so bad. I was getting paid, I was getting to act, and I was getting to annoy the hell out of the smug ex-boyfriend. A notification popped up on my phone, a bank alert. After the massive penthouse purchase, I still had over $7 million in my account. Then, a new text message appeared. "Julian, Mr. Vance, do you have time for coffee tomorrow? There's something about Izzy I'd like to discuss with you." I raised an eyebrow. This guy just wouldn't give up. Isabel seemed to sense something and opened her eyes. "Who's that?" I held up my phone, a knowing smile on my face. "It's your old flame. He wants to have coffee with me tomorrow." Isabel's expression instantly froze. For Isabel snatched the phone from my hand. After reading the text, her face darkened. "You're not going," she ordered, her thumb quickly deleting the message. "Julian is testing you. Don't fall for it." I shrugged as I took my phone back. I agreed to a family dinner for 100 grand. Why can't I have a free coffee? "It's not the same thing," Isabel said coldly. "Just behave at dinner tomorrow. My parents don't know we're planning to divorce." I paused. "You want me to lie to your parents?" "It's not lying. It's a temporary omission," she corrected. "Once Julian and I are on stable ground, I'll tell them." I clicked my tongue internally. This woman would even deceive her own parents for her old flame. "That'll cost you extra," I said bluntly. "This is high risk. I need a bigger fee." Isabel glared at me. "Leo, have you completely lost yourself to money?" "Mrs. Sterling," I shot back with a pleasant smile, "we have a purely financial relationship. Bringing feelings into it would just be bad for business." She was speechless. After a moment, she ground out, "Another $500,000. If you perform well." "Deal." I chirped. Should I prepare a script? How we met? Who pursued whom? Details of our blissful married life. Isabel rubbed her temples. "No need. Just keep your mouth shut. My parents don't like talkative people." The next evening, a driver picked me up to take me to the Sterling estate in Greenwich. I admire my reflection in the car window. The new suit, purchased specifically for the occasion, had cost a cool 10 grand. But since it was on Isabel's black card, I felt no pain. The Sterling estate was a traditional, sprawling mansion, the kind that screamed old money. As we walked in, I noted that Julian was nowhere to be seen. It seemed Isabel hadn't dared tell her parents that her ex was back in town. "Izzy, you're home," a gentle female voice called out. A graceful, middle-aged woman who bore a striking resemblance to Isabel came to greet us. "Mom," Isabel said, her demeanor softening as she took my arm. "This is Leo." Mrs. Sterling's eyes, warm but discerning, appraised me. "So you're Leo. Isabel talks about you all the time. It's so good to finally meet you." I offered a polite nod. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Sterling. I should have visited sooner." She smiled. "Nonsense. Come in, come in. Your father is in his study. He'll be down shortly." In the living room, my eyes were drawn to a family portrait on the wall. Isabel looked younger, her smile brighter and more open than it was now. Standing beside her was a stern-faced man who I assumed was her father. "What do you do for work, Leo?" Mrs. Sterling asked as she poured tea. Before I could answer, Isabel jumped in. "He's in investment management. He just closed a major deal." I shot her a look. "An investment manager?" I was an unemployed freeloader. Her mother seemed pleased. "Oh, that's wonderful. You and Izzy must have so much to talk about. How'd you two meet?" Again, Isabel cut in. "At a business forum. He was the keynote speaker." I sipped my tea silently. "Great, now I was a business guru." "Isabel mentioned you've been married for a year," her mother continued, her tone gentle but persistent. "Have you thought about children? Or is work keeping you too busy?" I nearly choked on my tea. This was definitely not in the script. Isabel froze, a blush creeping up her neck. "Mom, we won't enjoy being just the two of us for a few more years." Just then, a deep, authoritative voice boomed from the staircase. "Enjoy. The company is a mess, and you're busy enjoying yourselves?" I looked up to see Mr. Sterling descending the stairs. He wore a mandarin collared shirt, and was rolling a string of prayer beads in his hand, his expression severe. "Dad," Isabel said, standing immediately. Mr. Sterling glanced at her. Then his gaze landed on me, sizing me up. "So this is the one you chose." I stood and bowed my head slightly. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Leo Vance." He grunted and sat in the armchair at the head of the room. "I hear you're in investments. What sector are you bullish on right now?" My heart pounded. This was it. I was going to be exposed. I didn't know the first thing about stocks. Isabel tried to rescue me. "Dad, can we not talk business at the dinner table?" He shot her a glare. "What's wrong with asking?" He turned back to me. "Well, what sector?" Thinking fast, I dredged up some half-remembered headlines from my past life. "I believe renewable energy and artificial intelligence are the future," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "But in the short term, the consumer sector is probably a safer bet." Mr. Sterling raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Oh, elaborate." A cold sweat broke out on my back. I pushed on, spewing buzzwords. "There's a clear trend towards premiumization in the domestic market. High-end consumer goods and experiential spending should see significant growth." Under the table, Isabel pinched my leg, signaling me to stop talking. Thankfully, the housekeeper announced that dinner was ready, saving me from further interrogation. At the table, which was laden with food, Mrs. Sterling kept putting dishes on my plate. "Eat up, Leo. You're too thin." I thanked her and, catching Isabel's warning look, decided to lean in my role. I picked up a shrimp and placed it on her plate. "Izzy, your favorite." Isabel froze for a second, then forced a smile. "Thanks." Mr. Sterling watched our interaction, his expression softening slightly. "Now that you're married, you need to make it work. Izzy can be stubborn. You'll have to be patient with her." I nodded. "Isabel is wonderful. I'm a lucky one." This time, the pinch under the table was much harder. After dinner, Mr. Sterling invited me to his study for a game of chess. When Isabel tried to follow, her mother held her back. "Let the men talk." In the study, as he set up the board, Mr. Sterling asked casually, "How are things with you and Izzy?" "They're good," I said, cautiously placing a pawn. "She's not giving you a hard time, is she?" he asked suddenly. "I know my daughter. She's strong-willed. Always has been." I smiled. "She just seems that way on the outside. She's actually very caring." He snorted. "No need to cover for her. A few years ago, she nearly tore this family apart over that Julian Croft. At least she's finally come to her senses." My hand paused over the board. "So, Mr. Sterling was not a fan of Julian." "I hear the boy is back in the country," he said suddenly. "He hasn't been bothering Izzy, has he?" Sweat trickled down my back. "I'm not sure." Staring at the board, he continued in a low voice, "Stay away from him. He dumped Izzy for some foreign woman back when he had nothing. Now that she's successful, he comes crawling back. Pathetic." I nodded silently. It seemed Mr. Sterling saw things very clearly. He looked up at me. "You're better than him. At least you're grounded." I managed a weak smile, my conscience twinging with guilt. When we left the study, Isabel immediately pulled me aside. "What did my dad say to you?" "He said I was better than Julian." I answered truthfully. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. As we were leaving, Mrs. Sterling pressed a thick envelope into my hand. "Come back for dinner again soon." In the car, I opened it. Inside was a check for $25,000. It seemed the Sterlings approved of their new son-in-law. Isabel glanced at it. "You did well. I'll add another $200,000 to your bonus." "You're too generous, Mrs. Sterling," I said with a grin. But I couldn't help but think, if they knew this was all a sham, they'd probably have a fit. The next day, I went to meet Julian. It wasn't to defy Isabel, but I was genuinely curious about what game he was playing. We met at a high-end coffee shop known for its privacy. He was already there when I arrived, a laptop open in front of him, looking every bit the power executive. "Mr. Vance." "Punctual," he said with a smile, gesturing for me to sit. I got straight to the point. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Croft?" He stirred his coffee. "I heard you had dinner at the Sterling estate yesterday." His intelligence network was impressive. "Are you having me watched?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just concerned," he said with a small smile. "How is Mr. Sterling?" "I hear he has some misunderstandings about me." "I wouldn't know," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. Julian's eyes drifted to my new suit. "Is that this season's Brioni, Mr. Vance? Not cheap." My heart jumped. The man had a sharp eye. "It's a knockoff," I said smoothly. I could never afford the real thing. Julian's smile was skeptical. Really? Because I heard you recently bought a penthouse. In cash. A cold sweat formed on my back. He'd had me investigated. You must have bad information, Mr. Croft, I said, keeping my smile in place. I'm just a working guy. How could I afford a penthouse? Julian opened his laptop and turned it to face me. On the screen was a scanned copy of my purchase agreement. No need to be nervous, Mr. Vance, he said, closing the laptop. I'm just curious why Izzy would give you so much money. Is it really just a divorce settlement? I stared at him, then let out a slow laugh. Mr. Croft, since you've done your homework so thoroughly, you must know that Izzy and I aren't divorced yet. His expression faltered. I pressed my advantage. We are still legally married. It's not exactly appropriate for you to be meeting with me in private like this, is it? He quickly regained his composure. It's precisely because you're not divorced that I'm worried about Izzy. She gave you all this money. Do you have some kind of leverage over her? I almost laughed. A classic Uno reverse card. He was trying to paint me as a blackmailer. Mr. Croft, I said, leaning forward and lowering my voice. What do you think Izzy would say if I told her you were privately investigating her husband? The color drained from his face. I stood and straightened my suit. The coffee is on me. And one more piece of advice. I leaned in close, my voice barely a whisper. Mr. Sterling has a very low opinion of you. I'd suggest you stop pursuing his daughter. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving a pale-faced Julian sitting in stunned silence. Once outside, I let out a long breath. That felt good. No wonder villains in books loved making threats. It was exhilarating. Mission complete. Successfully countered Julian's probing. Reward, plus 10 insight. The system's notification put me in an even better mood. This Julian guy was clearly bad news. Isabel really was blind. As I was deciding how to spend my new bonus, my phone rang. It was Isabel. Did you go see Julian? She demanded the moment I answered. I raised an eyebrow. Did he tattle on me? There was a pause on the other end, then her voice turned to ice. Get to my office. Now. Great. Time to face the music. When I arrived at Sterling Enterprises, Isabel's face was a thundercloud. Leo, you broke our agreement, she said, slamming a stack of photos onto her desk. There were pictures of me and Julian at the coffee shop. I frowned. Did you have me follow? The point is you went to see him, she snapped, standing up abruptly. And you threatened him. Who gave you the right? I laughed. Mrs. Sterling, your precious ex-boyfriend investigates my real estate purchases and implies that I'm blackmailing you. And I'm the bad guy for pushing back. Isabel froze. He investigated you. Not only that, I added, laying it on thick, he also suggested that you only gave me money because I have something on you. If that got out, it wouldn't be great for your reputation, would it? Her expression shifted, and she slowly sank back in her chair. He really said that. I nodded, taking the opportunity to step closer. Mrs. Sterling, I know you care about him, but the man has questionable character. You deserve better. It was a half-truth. My main goal was to make Julian look bad, so he'd leave me alone. Isabel stared at me for a long time, then asked, Leo, are you jealous? I nearly choked. Jealous? Of what? I was just afraid their drama would get in the way of me collecting my money and enjoying my life. Before I could respond, she waved her hand dismissively. Never mind. Just go home and stay away from Julian. I practically ran out of her office. This stand-in husband gig was more intense than I'd bargained for. As I was leaving the Sterling Tower, I took a deep breath of fresh air. Just as I was about to hail a cab, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. When I answered, a pleasant female voice said, Mr. Leo Vance? This is the Metropolis Business Journal. We'd like to schedule an interview with you. I was stunned. An interview about what? About your recent achievements in the investment world, she replied. We heard you accurately predicted the recent surge in the consumer sector. My jaw tightened. This had to be Mr. Sterling's doing. This whole charade was getting out of control. If this kept up, I might actually have to learn something about investing. I stood there, phone in hand, completely at a loss. The Metropolis Business Journal. An interview. This whole charade was spiraling out of control. Mr. Vance? The woman on the line prompted. I cleared my throat. I'm sorry, I have a very busy schedule at the moment. I don't think I'll have time for an interview. It would only take an hour, she insisted. Our editor-in-chief specifically requested we reach out. Chairman Sterling recommended you personally, said you have a unique insight into the market. Chairman Sterling? Isabel's dad. My vision swam. I was in way over my head. Tell you what, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Let me have my assistant check my schedule, and I'll get back to you. After hanging up, I immediately called Isabel. The line rang for a while before she picked up, the background noise loud and chaotic. What is it? She asked, sounding annoyed. Your dad recommended me to the Metropolis Business Journal. I hissed into the phone. He told them I'm some kind of investment prodigy, and now they want to interview me. There was a pause, followed by Isabel's stifled laughter. Well, that's great, isn't it? It helps solidify your persona. Great. What's great about it? I panicked. I don't know anything. I'll be exposed. Figure out, she said dismissively. You have to at least look the part. Don't embarrass my father. Then she hung up. I stood on the sidewalk, wanted to tear my hair out. This was a disaster. All I wanted was to quietly take my money and disappear, and now I was being pushed into the role of a Wall Street genius. Defeated, I hailed a cab to the nearest bookstore and bought a stack of books on investing and finance, determined to cram as much as I could. As the cashier rang up the total, I winced. Even though it was on Isabel's black card, my old frugal habits died hard. Back in my penthouse, I brewed a pot of coffee and dove into the arcane world of financial jargon. K-charts, PE ratios, quantitative easing. It was all making my head spin. Host is detected studying investment knowledge. Activating skill, rapid learning. Learning efficiency increased by 30%. The system's notification was a lifeline. It actually had a feature like this. Sure enough, when I looked back at the complex concepts, they suddenly started to make sense. I read late into the night, and by the time I was done, I had at least a basic grasp of the subject. The next day, I nervously met with the journalist from the Business Journal. She was a sharp, professional young woman named Leah Weber. You're younger than I expected, Mr. Vance, she said with a smile, handing me her business card. Chairman Sterling speaks very highly of you. He was impressed by your call on the consumer sector surge. I maintained a confident smile. Mr. Sterling is too kind. I was just lucky. The interview went better than I could have hoped. Using my freshly crammed knowledge, combined with some vague memories of financial news from my past life, I managed to talk intelligently for over an hour. Leah nodded along, seeming genuinely impressed. One last question, she said, closing her notebook. What's your outlook on the market for the next quarter? Remembering the system's Midas touch skill, I took a shot in the dark. I think tech stocks will perform well, especially companies involved in artificial intelligence. It was a complete guess, but with a 5% boost in my returns, how wrong could I be? After the interview, I let out a huge sigh of relief. I had pulled it off. A few days later, the magazine came out. My interview was featured prominently, with the ridiculously over-the-top headline, The Mysterious New Prodigy, Leo Vance, the young genius with his finger on the pulse of the market. Isabel brought a copy to my penthouse, waving it in my face. Not bad, Leo the genius. You sound like you actually know what you're talking about. Please, Mrs. Sterling, don't make fun of me, I groaned. She flipped through the pages, then her expression turned serious. Since you're already a cover star, why don't you try your hand at some real investing? I stared at her. What do you mean? I'll give you $1 million, she said. You invest it. If you make a profit, it's yours. If you lose it, it's on me. My eyes widened. Is this for real? There's a catch, she added. I need you to use the money to vet someone for me. My guard went up immediately. Who? Julian, she said softly. He's been looking for investors for his new medtech project. I need to know if it's legitimate. I frowned. Why don't you just invest yourself? Why the roundabout way? Isabel's gaze flickered. He won't accept my money. He says he doesn't want people saying he's relying on a woman. I scoffed internally. He wanted to be a kept man, but still have his pride. Fine, I agree. But on one condition. Regardless of what I find, the $1 million is mine. Isabel raised an eyebrow. That confident you'll make a profit? I grinned. With you backing me, what do I have to be afraid of? And so began my new career as an investment genius. With Isabel's million, I registered an investment firm, rented a slick office, and even hired an assistant, a bright, recent finance grad named Mark. My first order of business was to schedule a meeting with Julian. He agreed immediately when he heard I was interested in investing. We met at a fancy restaurant, a much more formal setting than our last coffee shop encounter. I didn't realize you were interested in investing, Mr. Vance, Julian said with a smile, handing me his business proposal. I opened the sleek binder and pretended to study it. I didn't understand most of it, but with the system's help, I could pick out the key points. An AI-powered diagnostic system. I asked, there's a lot of competition in this space. What's your edge? Julian was brimming with confidence. Our algorithm is more accurate. It's already passed preliminary clinical trials. Once we have the funding, we can go to market within 6 months. As I continued to flip through the proposal, one detail caught my eye. On the list of the R&D team, a name jumped out at me. Kevin Ross, my old college classmate. This Mr. Ross, the engineer, I said, pointing to the name. I think I know him. Julian's expression flickered. Kevin is our chief technology officer. You know him. We were in college together, I said casually. I didn't realize he was so accomplished. A CTO, that's impressive. I remembered very clearly that Kevin had majored in marketing. Since when was he a tech guru? Julian quickly recovered. Kevin is self-taught. He has a real gift for it. I nodded and didn't press further, but my suspicions were raised. After the meal, I excused myself to the restroom and sent a quick text to my assistant, Mark, asking him to do a deep dive into Kevin Ross's background in Julian's project. When I returned to the table, Julian was on the phone, his back to me. His voice was low, but I caught a few words, as soon as possible. Once the funds are in, we pull out. A knot formed in my stomach. That did not sound like a legitimate business plan. Julian hung up and turned to see me standing there. He flinched, then quickly composed his smile. Just a company matter. So, Mr. Vance, what are your thoughts? I pretended to be deep in thought. The project has potential, but I'll need to conduct some due diligence. His smile tightened. Of course. That's standard. But I hope you can be quick. I have other investors lined up. I'll have an answer for you in 3 days, I said. As soon as I left the restaurant, I called Isabel and told her my suspicions. She was quiet for a long time before finally saying, I understand. You can drop the investigation now. Her voice sounded weary, which, for some reason, made me feel a pang of sympathy. Are you okay? I asked. She let out a small laugh. Why wouldn't I be? Business is war. I'm used to it. After hanging up, I felt a strange sense of unease. Isabel was a shark in the boardroom, but when it came to her personal life, she was a fool, letting a snake like Julian walk all over her. 3 days later, Mark's report came in. It confirmed my suspicions. Julian's project was a complete scam. The clinical data was fabricated, and Kevin wasn't a CTO. He was just a frontman brought in to lure investors. Their plan was to secure funding and then vanish. I forwarded the report to Isabel. She simply replied, received, and said nothing more. To my surprise, Julian had the audacity to call me. Mr. Vance, have you made a decision? He asked, his voice eager. I sneered. Mr. Croft, your project is very interesting, but it's not the right fit for me. There was a pause. Then his voice turned cold. Have you been listening to rumors, Mr. Vance? I'm just a humble investor, I said coolly. I don't understand overly complicated projects. The line was silent for a moment, and then Julian laughed. Leo, I underestimated you. But do you really think Izzy will believe you? In her eyes, you'll always be nothing more than a substitute. I raised an eyebrow. Thank you for your concern. But right now, I'm more concerned with whether the police will believe your business proposal. Julian slammed the phone down. I was in a great mood and decided to treat myself. Taking the rest of the $1 million Isabel had given me, I headed to the most expensive department store in the city and went on a shopping spree. Designer suits, bought them. Limited edition watches, bought them. All the luxury goods I had only ever dreamed of in my past life, I now had bagged and ready to go. As the cashier swiped my card, I checked my balance. With the $7+ million I had left, I now had over $17 million to play with. The feeling was incredible. As I was leaving the store, laden with bags, my phone rang. It was Isabel. Where are you? She asked, the background quiet. Shopping. I answered honestly. What can I do for you, Mrs. Sterling? Send me your location. I'm coming to get you. I was taken aback. Now. Yes, she said and hung up. 20 minutes later, her car pulled up in front of me. She rolled down the window, her eyes taking in my mountain of shopping bags. Looks like you had a successful day. Thanks to you, I said with a dry smile. Get in, she said, popping the trunk. I hesitated. But all my stuff. Put it in the back. In the car, I noticed that Isabel wasn't wearing any makeup. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she looked exhausted. Are you all right? I couldn't help but ask. She didn't answer, just started the car. Have dinner with me. I then realized she was dressed casually, a far cry from her usual impeccable style. The car stopped in front of a small, private restaurant tucked away in a quiet alley. It was understated but elegant. The owner seemed to know Isabel and led us directly to a private room. Their braised short ribs are the best in the city, Isabel said after ordering. I used to come here a lot. I noted her use of the past tense. The food arrived quickly and was, as promised, delicious. Isabel barely ate, focusing instead on her wine. I always knew there was something wrong with Julian's project, she said suddenly, her eyes distant. I was stunned. Then why did you? I just want to give him one last chance, she said with a bitter smile. I didn't realize he couldn't even be bothered to put any effort into lying to me. I didn't know what to say, so I just put a piece of short rib on her plate. Eat something. It's good. Isabel looked at the meat, then suddenly smiled. You know, Julian never ate the fatty parts. He would always pick them out. It finally dawned on me why she had brought me here. She was saying goodbye to the past. People change, I said. Maybe he wasn't always like this. Isabel shook her head. No, he was always like this. I just didn't want to see it. She drained her glass, her eyes clearing. Leo, thank you. I was confused. For what? For making me see reality, she said, standing up. Come on, I'll take you home. In the car, Isabel was silent. As we approached my penthouse, she suddenly asked, that interview, were you really just guessing? I hesitated. Mostly, in the parts that weren't. Maybe I have a little talent. I joked. She smiled, but didn't say anything more. The car stopped in front of my new building. Isabel raised an eyebrow. Looks like you didn't spend that whole $1 million on investments. I smiled sheepishly. A man needs a place to live. She nodded, then leaned over. Before I could react, she gently kissed my cheek. Good night, Leo the genius, she said, then rolled up the window and drove off. I stood there, my hand on my cheek, completely stunned. This whole act was getting stranger and stranger. I stood at the entrance of my building, my hand still on my cheek, trying to process what had just happened. Was that a reward? A test? Or was Isabel just drunk? Emotional bond progress, 10%. Alert. Host relationship with the target character is evolving. The system's notification snapped me out of my daze. Emotional bond. I thought I was on the take the money and run track. Shaking my head, I decided to ignore the unexpected kiss. In 3 months, I'd be gone with my money. Isabel could play whatever game she wanted until then. The next morning, I woke up naturally, the sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Lying on the king-size bed, I stared at the extravagant crystal chandelier, feeling a sense of surrealism. In my past life, I was crammed into a tiny studio. Now, I live in an 8,000-square-foot penthouse. Life was unpredictable. After a long soak in the whirlpool tub, my phone rang. It was my assistant, Mark. Mr. Vance, great news, he said, his voice buzzing with excitement. Your interview in the Business Journal got a huge response. Several companies want to consult with you about investment opportunities. I nearly slipped under the water. What? Consult with me? Yes, and that tech stock you mentioned, it's been soaring for the past few days. I was floored. My random guess had actually come true. Was the system's 5% boost that powerful? After hanging up, I quickly checked the stock market app. Sure enough, several AI-related stocks were on a bull run, one of them even hitting its daily limit. This is insane, I mumbled to myself. Just then, the doorbell rang. I wrapped a towel around my waist and went to the door. A delivery guy was standing there with a massive bouquet of red roses. From Mr. Leo Vance. I signed for them, confused. There was no card. Who would send me roses? Before I could figure out, my phone rang again. It was another unknown number. Mr. Vance, this is Mr. Davis from Star Capital. I was very impressed by your interview. I'd like to invite you to lunch to discuss potential collaborations. I stammered for a few seconds before recovering. Ah, Mr. Davis, thank you, but I'm afraid I'm not available today. What about tomorrow? Or you name a time. I'm free whenever. I managed to politely decline and hung up, completely bewildered. Star Capital? That was one of the biggest investment firms in the city. Over the next few hours, I received several more similar calls from various investment firms and corporate executives, all wanting to meet with me. One TV production company even wanted to hire me as a special guest for their financial news show. What is happening? I collapsed onto the sofa, feeling like my carefully constructed persona was about to shatter. To make things even weirder, another bouquet arrived. This time it was lilies. Still no card. I couldn't take it anymore and called Isabel. "Mrs. Sterling, are you the one sending me flowers?" There was a pause, then her light laughter. "Why? Is it a bad thing to receive flowers?" "It's not bad, it's just strange," I said honestly. "And all these people are calling me for investment advice. I don't know anything about investing." She sounded amused. "Well, isn't that perfect? You wanted to play the part of an investment genius. Here's your chance. Mrs. Sterling, I can't keep this up." I wailed. "You have to." Her tone suddenly turned serious. "There's an important gala tonight. You're coming with me." "Another gala?" I asked warily. "Julian isn't going to be there, is he?" "No, he's not on the guest list," she said, then paused. "It's a city-hosted business banquet. My father will be there." My heart sank. Mr. Sterling, the man who thought I was an investment prodigy. "Can I sit this one out?" I asked weakly. "What do you think?" she said with a light laugh. "Don't forget, you're the husband I astutely chose." Right. I had dug this hole for myself. Now I had to lie in it. That evening, Isabel's driver picked me up. She had outdone herself, providing me with an even more expensive suit and a watch that probably cost more than my old apartment. "Is all this really necessary?" I asked, looking at my dapper reflection in the mirror. Isabel adjusted my tie, her movements so natural they caught me off guard. "Tonight's guests are all major players in the business world. We can't afford to look bad." She was wearing a royal blue gown that made her skin look like porcelain, her makeup flawless. She was even more stunning than usual. The banquet was held at a 5-star hotel in the city center, an even grander affair than the last one. There were even reporters at the entrance, their cameras flashing incessantly. Isabel took my arm, her smile perfect as she greeted people. I kept a pleasant expression on my face, but my heart was pounding. What if I messed up in front of all these people? "Izzy, Leo, over here," Mr. Sterling's voice called out. We walked over to where he was chatting with a group of powerful-looking men. His face lit up when he saw me. "Perfect timing. Gentlemen, this is my son-in-law, Leo Vance, the one I was telling you about from the Business Journal." The men all turned to look at me with interest. "A remarkable young man," one of them said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Your father-in-law can't stop singing your praises. Said you called the tech stock rally." I broke into a nervous sweat. "I was just lucky," I said with a modest smile. "Nonsense," Mr. Sterling boomed. "And he's not just a market wizard. He's a decent chess player, too. Nearly beat me the other day." This only piqued their interest further, and they started bombarding me with questions about my investment strategies. I managed to fumble my way through, using a combination of my crammed knowledge and the system's prompts. Isabel stood by, a playful glint in her eye, seeming to enjoy my discomfort. When I finally managed to escape, I rushed to the buffet table to catch my breath, downing a glass of champagne in one go. "Nervous?" Isabel asked, sidling up to me. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm going to be exposed if this keeps up," I said with a pained smile. She laughed. "Don't worry. I think you're doing great." Just then, a familiar voice cut in. "Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Vance, good to see you again." I turned to see Kevin Ross approaching, a fawning smile on his face. He was dressed to the nines, having somehow managed to sneak into the event. Isabel's expression cooled. "Mr. Ross." Kevin, oblivious to her frosty demeanor, turned to me enthusiastically. "Leo, you're the man of the hour. Everyone in our old college alumni chat is talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what are they saying?" "That you hit the jackpot. Not only did you marry a goddess like Mrs. Sterling, but you also became an investment genius," he said, leaning in conspiratorially. "A few of the guys wanted me to ask if you had any investment opportunities for them." I sneered internally. My investigation had revealed that Kevin wasn't a CTO at all, just a shill Julian had hired to scam people. And now he had the nerve to ask me for tips? "There might be some opportunities," I said, raising my voice slightly. "But first, I need to clarify, Mr. Ross. Are you in tech or in marketing? I heard you were the CTO for a certain medtech AI project." The color drained from Kevin's face. That project. It was put on hold. On hold." I feigned surprise. "Why?" "I thought it was about to go to market." People started to look over. Sweat beaded on Kevin's forehead. "There were some technical issues." Isabel interjected coldly. Really? I heard it was because the clinical data was fabricated and the project is under investigation. Kevin's face turned as white as a sheet. He stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. What's going on here? A stern voice asked. Mr. Sterling had approached, the other business leaders in tow. Isabel said calmly, Nothing, Dad. Just ran into a scam artist who almost fooled us with a fraudulent project. Mr. Sterling's face hardened. He turned to Kevin. Which company are you with? Kevin looked like he was about to faint. Chairman Sterling. It's a misunderstanding. Security. Mr. Sterling called out. Please escort this gentleman out and find out how he got in. As Kevin was dragged away, humiliated, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Stay away from people like that, Mr. Sterling advised me, then turned to the others with a smile. Just a minor interruption. Please enjoy the evening. After the crowd dispersed, he clapped me on the shoulder. Good job. Business is a battlefield. You have to be sharp and ruthless. I nodded silently, thinking that if he knew I was a scammer too, he wouldn't be so pleased. For the rest of the evening, I was the center of attention. People kept coming up to me, handing me their business cards, asking for meetings. It was exhausting. I finally managed to slip away to the terrace for some fresh air. The cool night breeze was a welcome relief. I leaned against the railing, looking out at the city lights, feeling a sense of whiplash. 3 months ago, I was worried about rent. Now I was an acclaimed investment genius. Life was stranger than fiction. Hiding out here, Isabel's voice came from behind me. I turned to see her leaning against the doorway, 2 glasses of champagne in her hand. Please, Mrs. Sterling, have mercy, I said with a weary smile. I can't keep this act up for much longer. She handed me a glass. Don't worry, I've got your back. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. The wind blew a strand of her hair across her face, carrying her light, floral scent. Thank you, she said suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. For what? For not revealing the connection between Kevin and Julian back there, she said softly. You saved me from a lot of embarrassment. It was nothing, I said, taking a sip of champagne. The truth was, I just didn't want to get dragged into any more of their drama. Isabel turned to look at me, her eyes shimmering in the dim light. You know, Leo, you constantly surprise me. My heart skipped a beat. Surprise you how? That I can be such a convincing actor. She shook her head, not answering. Instead, she gently clinked her glass against mine. Cheers. We drank in silence, the atmosphere suddenly charged with an unspoken intimacy. Just then, my phone started vibrating nonstop. I pulled it out to see a flood of news alerts. Investment prodigy Leo Vance appears at business banquet, shares intimate moment with Sterling CEO and Chairman Tech stocks continue to rise on Vance's recommendation, the rise of Leo Vance. An unlikely success story. I stared at the screen, dumbfounded. I was already making headlines. The most ridiculous one was, Sterling CEO's husband's good, looks go viral. Netizens say he could be a movie star. The accompanying photo was of me and Isabel on the terrace, a candid shot that made us look like a genuinely happy couple. Isabel leaned over to look. Not a bad picture, she said with a smirk. Mrs. Sterling, this is getting out of hand, I groaned. She raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Afraid of a little fame? I was afraid of how I was going to disappear without a trace in 3 months when my face was plastered all over the news. As I was stressing, my phone rang. It was Mark, and he sounded frantic. Mr. Vance, we have a problem. Someone posted a thread on Reddit exposing you. They're saying you're a fraud, that you don't know anything about investing. My stomach dropped. It was happening. The other shoe had finally dropped. ####7. My hand holding the phone grew slick with sweat. What kind of post? I asked Mark, my voice low, glancing at Isabel. She was still gazing at the skyline, seemingly oblivious to my distress. It's a long thread from an anonymous user on Reddit. Mark said, his voice trembling. It says you don't know anything about investing, that your predictions were just lucky guesses, and it hints that your marriage to Mrs. Sterling is suspicious. My blood ran cold. What are the specifics? It says you have a liberal arts degree, no background in finance. It mentions you were just a regular office worker before you got married and suddenly became this investment guru. It looks really bad, Mark paused. Worst of all, they posted a photo of your old lease agreement and testimonials from your former colleagues. My vision tunneled. This was a detailed, professional takedown. Mr. Vance, what do we do? The thread is already being shared on Twitter, and everyone in the comments is calling you a fraud. Mark was on the verge of tears. Should I try to get it taken down? I forced myself to think clearly. Don't do anything yet. Let me see it first. I hung up and immediately pulled up Reddit. Sure enough, a post titled "The Truth About Investment Genius Leo Vance, Hoax or Real Deal" was trending on the front page with hundreds of comments. The post was even more damning than Mark had described. It included pictures of the rundown apartment building I used to live in and a photo of my old work ID. In the photo, I was wearing a cheap suit, a strained, corporate smile plastered on my face, a world away from the man I was now. The comments were a dumpster fire. Knew it. Total fraud. He's obviously a gold digger. Wait, is that photo real? Why would Leo Vance need to live in a place like that? You're so naive. He was obviously faking being poor before he married into money. How did Isabel Sterling fall for this? I thought she was supposed to be smart. The more I read, the colder I felt. This wasn't a random hater. The level of detail was too specific. Was it Julian? Or was this Kevin's revenge? What's wrong? Isabel's voice startled me. I instinctively tried to hide my phone. It's nothing. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Your face is pale. After a moment's hesitation, I handed her the phone. Someone on Reddit is claiming I'm a fraud. Isabel took the phone, her expression growing serious as she scrolled through the post. I watched her, bracing myself for the inevitable explosion. To my utter shock, after she finished reading, she let out a small laugh. Is that it? I stared at her. Is that it? This is serious. The claims are a mix of half-truths and outright lies. It's a clumsy, amateurish attack, she said, handing the phone back to me dismissively. It's obviously a targeted smear campaign. I blinked. You're not. Suspicious. Isabel gave me a look. If I couldn't see through something this obvious, I wouldn't be running Sterling Enterprises. She took out her own phone and made a call. Sarah, there's a Reddit thread about Mr. Vance I need you to handle. Yes, get it all taken down and send a cease and desist. And trace the IP. I want to know who's behind this. She hung up and gave me a small smile. Problem solved. I was speechless. So this was the power of real money. However, she said thoughtfully, this does highlight a vulnerability. Your persona is too thin. It can't withstand scrutiny. That's what I've been trying to tell you, I said with a groan. I can't keep this up. Then we'll make it real, she said, her eyes sharp. Starting tomorrow, you'll officially join Sterling Enterprises. I'm putting you on a few projects. I nearly choked. Work at Sterling, but I really don't know anything about investing. Then you'll learn, she said, her tone final. It's better than being exposed again. I want to cry. How had my simple plan to get rich and disappear turned into a full-blown career? The next day, I reluctantly went to the Sterling Enterprises headquarters. Isabel had created a new position for me, special advisor, with an office right next to hers. The investment department staff eyed me with a mixture of curiosity, envy, and suspicion. I held my head high and tried to project an air of confidence as I walked to my office. I spent the morning staring at piles of project files, my head swimming with financial reports, market analyses, and risk assessments. It was all Greek to me. At noon, Isabel came to get me for lunch. In the company cafeteria, she deliberately sat across from me, her behavior affectionate, drawing stares from everyone around us. Mrs. Sterling, what are you doing? I whispered. Who is this for? She elegantly cut into her steak. Solidifying your persona. Now, the whole company knows you're my protege. Anyone who questions you is questioning my judgment. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman was really getting into her role. That afternoon, Isabel had me sit in on a project meeting. As the financial analysts and executives debated, I sat in silence, trying to look profound. After the meeting, the head of the investment department approached me. Mr. Vance, you didn't seem to approve of the proposal. Thinking fast, I said, the proposal is sound, but the risk mitigation strategy needs to be stronger. The department head's eyes lit up. Of course, I'll have the team run another risk assessment immediately. I let out a sigh of relief as he walked away. I had managed to bluff my way through. This became my new routine. I spent my days pretending to be an executive at Sterling Enterprises and my nights cramming financial theory. With the system's learning boost, I actually started to understand some of it. Surprisingly, Isabel seemed to be enjoying our power couple charade. She continued her public displays of affection, and our private interactions became more frequent. Today, she even asked me to go shopping with her. Mrs. Sterling, this is definitely not in our contract, I said, feeling overwhelmed by the bustling mall. Isabel, chic in a pair of large sunglasses, held onto my arm. A persona needs to be maintained in all aspects of life. You never know when a reporter might be lurking. Are you getting addicted to this? I asked wearily. She laughed. What? Is it so terrible to be seen shopping with me? She pulled me into a luxury boutique and started picking out ties. What about this one? She asked, holding a blue striped tie against my chest. An excellent choice, madam. It suits your husband perfectly, the sales clerk gushed. Isabel didn't correct her. Instead, she smiled at me. Turn around, let me see. I complied, thinking that this was all getting a little too real. After buying the tie, we went for afternoon tea. For the first time, Isabel opened up, talking about her childhood and her early career. I was so engrossed in her stories that I almost forgot we were just acting. You know, I always knew what kind of person Julian was, she said suddenly, stirring her coffee. I just didn't want to admit I'd made a mistake. I didn't know what to say. She smiled. Sometimes I think it would be better to be with someone like you. Simple, uncomplicated. My heart skipped a beat. You're joking, Mrs. Sterling. A commoner like me could never be with someone like you. She stared at me for a long moment, then asked, Leo, if I wasn't Isabel Sterling, and you weren't, do you think we could have had a chance? I froze. This was definitely not in the script. Just as I was trying to formulate an answer, there was a screech of tires and a collective gasp from outside. We both turned to see a little girl frozen in the middle of the street, a large truck barreling towards her. Look out! I yelled, my body moving on instinct. Time seemed to slow down. I launched myself at the girl, tackling her and rolling us both onto the sidewalk just as the truck roared past, the wind from its passage stinging my face. Leo! I heard Isabel scream. I lay on the pavement, the little girl sobbing in my arms that a crowd had gathered around us. It's okay. I soothed her, my own heart hammering against my ribs. Are you hurt? She shook her head, hiccuping. Thank you, mister. Isabel rushed to my side, her face pale. Are you all right? Are you hurt? I got to my feet, testing my limbs. I'm fine. Just a few scrapes. A woman pushed through the crowd and scooped up the little girl. Sweetie, you scared me to death. She thanked me profusely, and the crowd broke into applause. Feeling a little embarrassed, I took Isabel's arm and tried to slip away. The next day, the story was all over the news. Sterling CEO's husband saves child in heroic act. The headline was accompanied by a photo of me holding the little girl, the article painting me as a selfless hero. Isabel held up the newspaper, a knowing smile on her face. Well, Leo the genius, I think your persona is safe now. It was just an accident, I mumbled. She leaned in close, her voice a whisper. But the decision to save her, that wasn't an act. I was speechless. The incident inexplicably elevated my status at the company. My colleagues looked at me with a new respect, and even the difficult department head started coming to me for advice. To my surprise, Mr. Sterling called to congratulate me. Good lad. You've done the family proud. Come to the estate for dinner this weekend. We'll celebrate. I was stunned. After hanging up, Isabel laughed. It seems my father has really taken a liking to you. A strange feeling washed over me. Mrs. Sterling, our contract is up in 2 months. Her smile faded. Are you counting down the days until you can leave? I looked away. Take the money and run. That was the deal from the start, wasn't it? She was silent for a moment, then said, What if I told you I don't want you to go? I froze, my heart beating a little faster. Just then, my assistant Mark knocked on the door, looking flustered. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Vance, the investigation is complete. We traced the IP address from the Reddit post. Isabel snapped back into business mode. Who was it? Mark hesitated, glancing at me. It was Julian Croft. Of course it was. I sighed. Isabel's expression turned to ice. I see. Compile the evidence and send it to me. After Mark left, the office was silent. What are you going to do? I finally asked. She stared out the window, her voice soft. You're right. It's time to end this. She picked up her phone and dialed Julian's number. "We need to meet. Now." She hung up and turned to me. "You're coming with me." I was taken aback. "Me? Of course," she said, a small, sharp smile on her lips. I want him to see exactly who he lost to. The drive was tense and silent. Isabel drove fast, her calm expression betrayed by the white-knuckled grip she had on the steering wheel. She pulled up to a discreet, members-only club, the perfect place for a private confrontation. "Don't say anything. Just follow my lead," she instructed before we got out. I nodded. "Got it." A hostess led us to a private suite where Julian was already waiting. Dressed in an impeccable suit, he looked as polished as ever. He stood as we entered, a warm, practiced smile on his face. "Izzy, you're here," he said, pulling out a chair for her while completely ignoring me. Isabel remained standing, her gaze like ice. "Why did you do it?" Julian played dumb. "Do what?" "Izzy, I have no idea what you're talking about." She tossed a file onto the table. "The IP address from that Reddit post traces back to your office. Do you need me to present more evidence?" His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Izzy, let me explain. I was worried about you. This Leo character isn't worthy of you. Who is or isn't worthy of me is not your decision." Isabel cut him off. "It's over, Julian. I thought we could at least be civil, but you've made that impossible." The color drained from his face. "Izzy, I did it because I love you. What is this guy? A substitute? A cheap knockoff? How is he better than me?" I stood there feeling like I was watching a soap opera. A cheap knockoff? This guy was seriously delusional. Isabel let out a cold laugh. "For one thing, he doesn't stab people in the back. He doesn't resort to pathetic, underhanded schemes." Julian's voice rose. "Schemes? Izzy, have you forgotten who abandoned you when your family was in trouble? Was it him?" "No, it was your precious first love." My eyebrows shot up. A new plot twist? It seemed Isabel's version of the story wasn't entirely complete. For a moment, Isabel's resolve wavered, but then her expression hardened again. "I'm not interested in dredging up the past. I came here to tell you to stay away from Leo and stay out of my life. If you don't," she tapped the file on the table, "I have no problem turning this evidence over to the police. Defamation, on top of that fraudulent project of yours. You'll be in a world of trouble." Julian's face was ashen. "Izzy, do you have to be so cruel?" "You crossed the line first," she said, turning to leave. "Let's go, Leo." As we walked out, Julian's enraged voice echoed behind us. "Isabel, you'll regret this." Once outside, Isabel let out a long, shuddering breath. I looked at her with a newfound respect. She was ruthless, a true CEO. In the car, I broke the silence. "Mrs. Sterling, what?" Julian said back there. "It's in the past," she cut me off, her voice tired. "It's true, my family went through a difficult time. He chose to leave. I can understand that." I was surprised by her magnanimity. "That's not how it went down in the book." "Then why were you still?" I trailed off. "Hung up on him," she finished with a self-deprecating laugh. Maybe it was my pride. I wanted to prove that I was worthy of being chosen. My heart softened. Even someone as powerful as Isabel had insecurities. Back at the office, Isabel announced my promotion. I was now the vice president of the investment department. I was stunned. This was getting way too real. To make matters worse, she started giving me actual projects to manage. My first assignment was to evaluate a tech startup for potential investment. I stared at the thick proposal, completely overwhelmed, and had to call on my assistant, Mark, for help. Mark was a lifesaver. He quickly broke down the key points for me. "The company specializes in smart home systems, Mr. Vance," he explained. "The technology is innovative, but the market is saturated." I listened, taking notes, when an idea struck me. "What's their core competitive advantage?" Mark consulted his notes. "They have a proprietary AI algorithm that's supposedly more intuitive than anything else on the market." Remembering my Midas touch skill, I made a decision. Set up a meeting with their CEO. I want a personal demonstration. 3 days later, I met with the company's CEO, a young, earnest engineer named Mark Chen. He was visibly nervous as he demonstrated his product, his eyes shining with passion. "Our system can learn a user's habits and automatically adjust the home environment," he explained right before the system crashed. The silence was excruciating. Chen broke out in a sweat. I'm so sorry. It must be a network issue. Looking at his sincere, panicked face, I was reminded of my own past attempts at entrepreneurship. The same fumbling, the same desperate hope for a break. It's all right, I said with a smile. Show me your code, architecture. Chun looked at me in surprise. You know how to code, Mr. Vance? A little. I bluffed, relying on the system to feed me information. After reviewing the code, I asked a few more technical questions. With each answer, Chun grew more and more excited, the light returning to his eyes. On the way back to the office, I knew what I had to do. You want to invest in this project? Isabel asked, raising an eyebrow after I gave her my report. But their demo failed. Technical issues can be fixed, I said, with a surprising amount of conviction. It's the people and the vision that matter. Chun is the real deal, not a scam artist. Isabel studied me thoughtfully. You seem to really believe in him. I smiled. I just think it's more meaningful to give a chance to someone who's genuine than to invest in another flashy, empty project. She was silent for a moment, then asked, Leo, who are you, really? My heart stuttered. What do you mean? Sometimes you're so shallow. All you care about is money. And other times you have this incredible insight into people, she said, her eyes boring into mine. Which one is the real you? I looked away. People are complicated. She didn't press further. Fine, do it your way. The project is yours to manage. You're responsible for the profits and the losses. I was stunned. For real, she said with a smirk. Let's see if your instincts are as good as you think. I threw myself into the project. With the system's help, I quickly got up to speed on the smart home industry and even offered Chun a few suggestions for improvement. He was amazed by my expertise and worked even harder. We often stayed late, brainstorming and refining the technology. Sometimes, Isabel would stop by with food, watching us with a strange expression on her face. I didn't expect you to get so invested, she said one night as she drove me home. I rubbed my tired eyes. Just trying to earn my keep. She laughed. Is that all it is? I didn't answer. The truth was, I didn't know why I was working so hard. Maybe I wanted to prove to Isabel and to myself that I was more than just a fraud. A month later, our hard work paid off. Chun's company launched its new and improved product to rave reviews. Our initial investment had already seen a 20% return. Isabel looked at the report, a rare, genuine smile on her face. It seems I didn't misjudge you. I puffed out my chest. Of course not. They don't call me Leo the genius for nothing. She shook her head, laughing. Don't let it go to your head. Just then, Mark burst into the office. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Vance, we have a problem. What is it? Isabel asked, her expression hardening. It's Julian Croft, Mark said, glancing nervously at me. He posted a long story online, claiming that Mr. Vance is a homewrecker who broke up his relationship with you. I felt a wave of exhaustion. Would this guy ever give up? Isabel's face turned to stone. Show me. Mark handed her a tablet. The post was a masterclass in manipulation, painting Julian as a heartbroken victim, me as a manipulative villain, and Isabel as a naive woman who had been duped. The comments were a war zone, with people attacking me, defending Julian, and questioning Isabel's judgment. How dare he? Isabel's hand trembled with rage. How dare he twist the truth like this? For some reason, I felt calm. Mrs. Sterling, let me handle this. She looked at me in surprise. You? I smiled. I can't have you protecting me all the time, can I? I had Mark compile all the evidence we had on Julian, from the Reddit post to the fraudulent business proposal, and sent it to a few trusted media contacts. The next day, an article titled The Truth Behind the Heartbroken Ex was published, exposing Julian's lies. At the same time, Mark Chun agreed to an interview, praising my professionalism and vision. The public opinion shifted overnight. Julian was vilified, Isabel was praised for her good judgment, and some people even started shipping us as a couple. Not bad, Leo, Isabel said, looking at the article with approval. A brilliant counterattack. I grinned. Can't let you down, can I? She shook her head, then her expression turned serious. But with all this publicity, I don't think we can keep our arrangement a secret for much longer. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? My parents already know, she said with a sigh. They want you to come to the estate this weekend to explain. Here we go again. That weekend, I nervously accompanied Isabel to Greenwich. Her parents' expressions were grim. So what's the real story? Mr. Sterling demanded. Is what they're saying online true? It's all lies Julian made up, Isabel said quickly. Leo is innocent. And your marriage? Mrs. Sterling pressed. Is that a lie too? Isabel was speechless. I took a deep breath, ready to come clean. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, the truth is, we started out as a marriage of convenience. Isabel cut me off, her voice ringing with conviction. But I've realized that I'm genuinely in love with Leo. I whipped my head around to stare at her. What was she doing? Her parents were equally stunned. What? Isabel took my hand, her eyes shining with sincerity. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I lied to you. But I know now, with absolute certainty, that Leo is the man I want to spend the rest of my life with. I was completely and utterly baffled. Had she lost her mind? Mr. Sterling looked from our joined hands to my face, and then he burst out laughing. Excellent. I always said the boy was better than Julian. Mrs. Sterling smiled. You young people. Well, I'm glad you finally figured things out. I sat there, a frozen smile on my face, my palms sweating. This was getting way out of hand. After dinner, Isabel pulled me into the garden. The moonlight softened her features, making her look ethereal. I meant what I said in there, she said suddenly. I was still reeling. What did you say? I'm in love with you, Leo, she said, her gaze steady. This isn't an act. My heart stopped. My mind went blank. Emotional bond progress, 80%. Warning. Host is deviating from the original mission path. The system's alert snapped me back to reality. This wasn't right. I was supposed to take the money and run. Mrs. Sterling, you can't be serious, I said with a nervous laugh. We agreed. I know what we agreed, she said softly. 3 months, then you take the money and leave. But I've changed my mind. Leo, stay. Please. I looked at her beautiful face illuminated by the moon, and I was speechless. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a bank notification. The final $1.5 million from Isabel had been deposited into my account. Staring at the long string of zeros on the screen, a cold clarity washed over me. The money was here. It was time to go. I stared at the phone screen, at the string of zeros that confirmed my new net worth. $6.5 million. Enough money to live like a king for the rest of my life. The final payment from Isabel signified the end of our contract. I was free to walk away, to start the life of leisure I'd always dreamed of. So why did I feel nothing but a hollow ache in my chest? Leo, Isabel's voice was laced with uncertainty. You haven't answered me. I looked up at her, at the way the moonlight softened the sharp lines of her face. In that moment, she wasn't a powerful CEO. She was just a woman waiting for an answer. Isabel, I began, the name feeling foreign and yet right on my tongue. We had a deal. 3 months. Take the money and run. The light in her eyes dimmed for a second, but then it returned, brighter than before. Yes, we did, but we can make a new deal. These past 3 months, did they mean nothing to you? I couldn't answer. It would be a lie to say I felt nothing. Isabel was brilliant, strong, and her rare moments of vulnerability were devastatingly endearing. But was it love? Or had I just gotten lost in the role I was playing? I started, but the words wouldn't come. My phone rang again, shattering the fragile moment. It was my assistant, Mark. Mr. Vance, incredible news, he practically shouted into the phone. The smart home project we invested in. A major tech company wants to acquire it. The offer is... It's huge. He told me the number, and my mind went numb. I automatically calculated my share of the profits. Based on our agreement, my personal cut would be nearly $2 million. Mr. Vance, are you there? Mark asked. I snapped back to reality. I'm here. Where are the details? It's Titan Dynamics. They love our technology and want a full acquisition. The CEO, Mr. Chun, needs you here for the negotiations ASAP. I hung up, still in daze. $2 million. On top of the $6.5 million, that was $8.5 million. I had never imagined I would see that much money in my lifetime. Is everything okay? Isabel asked. I took a deep breath. The smart home project. Titan Dynamics wants to buy it. Her eyes widened in genuine excitement. Really? Leo, that's incredible. You're going to be a star in the investment world. Seeing her so genuinely happy for me only made the knot in my stomach tighten. I have to get to the office, I said. I'll drive you, she said, her hand naturally finding its way to my arm. The drive was silent, my mind a chaotic whirlwind. $8.5 million. I could go anywhere, do anything. I could buy a private island, sail around the world, wake up every morning in a ridiculously large bed. So why did the thought of leaving feel like a punch to the gut? At the office, Mark Chun was pacing in the conference room, his face flushed with excitement. Mr. Vance, he said, grabbing my hand. Titan Dynamics, can you believe it? His energy was contagious. I couldn't help but smile. Easy, Chun. What's the situation? Their VP is on his way. He wants to negotiate with you personally, he said, practically bouncing on the balls of his feet. He said he was impressed with your investment instincts and wants to offer you a job. I froze. A job? Isabel raised an eyebrow. It seems Leo the genius is in high demand. Just then, the conference room door opened. A well-dressed, middle-aged man walked in, flanked by a team of assistants. Which one of you is Mr. Leo Vance? He asked, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. I stood. That would be me. He smiled, extending a hand. A pleasure. I'm David Chun, VP at Titan Dynamics. I was very impressed by your interview in the Business Journal. I shook his hand, thinking that my one lucky guess was causing me a lot of trouble. The negotiation went smoothly. Titan Dynamics was generous with their offer. Chun was so excited he could barely sit still, constantly looking to me for cues. I remained calm, interjecting with a few suggestions here and there. With the system's help, I was a natural, and even David Chun looked impressed. You live up to your reputation, Mr. Vance, he said after we signed the contracts. Have you ever considered a move? We're building a new investment division at Titan and could use a man with your talent. I hesitated, my eyes instinctively darting to Isabel. Her expression was unreadable. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Chun, I said, but I'm currently employed at Sterling Enterprises. He nodded in understanding. Of course, but if you ever change your mind, my door is always open. After they left, Chun threw his arms around me. We did it, Mr. Vance. We actually did it. I couldn't have done it without you. I patted his back, a genuine sense of pride swelling in my chest. This was the first thing I had ever truly built. Isabel stood by, a small, genuine smile on her face. Congratulations, gentlemen, she said once Chun had calmed down. Dinner is on me tonight. We're celebrating. The celebration was a huge success. The entire investment department was there, and even Mr. Sterling called to congratulate me. I had a little too much to drink and was feeling the effects. On my way to the restroom, Isabel followed me. In the empty hallway, she asked, "Why did you turn down the offer from Titan?" I leaned against the wall, the alcohol making me bold. I still have a part to play, don't I? She looked at me intently. Is that all this is to you? A part. The words slipped out before I could stop them. What else would it be? You're not actually in love with me, are you? I immediately regretted it. That was crossing a line. To my shock, she nodded. Yes, I am. I froze. She took a step closer, her voice barely a whisper. These past 3 months, I've watched you transform. I've watched you save a child. I've watched you help Chun build his dream. Leo, I think I've fallen in love with you. My heart skipped a beat. The alcohol had slowed my brain, and I couldn't think of what to say. I started. Suddenly, the shrill ring of my phone broke the spell. I let out a sigh of relief and quickly answered. Hello, Mr. Leo Vance? A man's voice asked. This is the NYPD. Do you know Julian Croft? My stomach clenched. Yes. Why? He's at the station, being charged with economic fraud and defamation. He's asking to see you and Ms. Isabel Sterling. The alcohol buzz vanished instantly. What happened? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details. Can you both come down to the precinct? I hung up and told Isabel what had happened. The color drained from her face. We rushed to the police station. An officer led us to an interrogation room. Julian was sitting at the table, his hands cuffed, his face gaunt and tired. He managed a weak smile when he saw us. You came. What happened? Isabel asked, her voice cold. Julian took a deep breath. I turned myself in. The MedTech project was a scam. Kevin was my accomplice. There were other scams too. I stared at him, shocked. He turned himself in? This wasn't in the book. Why? Isabel asked, voicing my own question. Julian looked at her, his eyes filled with a strange mix of regret and resignation. Because you were right. I wasn't worthy of you. I've spent my whole life lying to myself and to everyone else. I'm tired. He turned to me. Leo, I'm sorry. I was the one who leaked your information. I was jealous. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to apologize to you both in person. Julian continued. And be careful of Kevin. He's not going to take this well. He might do something desperate. We left the station in silence. The night air was cold against my face. I can't believe he turned himself in. I finally said. People change, Isabel said softly. She turned to me, her eyes shining in the dark. Leo, what's your answer? I looked at her, my mind a tangled mess. $8.5 million was waiting for me in my bank account. I could leave right now. So why do my feet feel like they were encased in lead? I took a deep breath. I need time to think. The light in her eyes flickered, but she nodded. Okay, I'll give you time. She leaned in and gently kissed my cheek. But don't make me wait too long. Back in my empty penthouse, I stood by the window, staring out at the city. The $8.5 million balance on my phone screen brought me no joy. Warning, 7 days remaining until mission conclusion. Host must make a choice. The system's voice was cold and clinical. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. What choice was there to make? Stay and live a life that started as a lie. Or leave and be rich but happy. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared from my phone. My security system. There was an intruder on the property. I immediately dropped to the ground, my eyes scanning the backyard below. A shadowy figure was lurking near the patio, their movements unsteady. It was Kevin, and he was holding something in his hand. My blood ran cold. I remembered Julian's warning. Be careful of Kevin. He might do something desperate. Just then, the glass patio door shattered. Hashtag, 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 10 the sound of shattering glass echoed through the silent penthouse. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed the stun gun I kept hidden under the coffee table, a precaution I'd taken ever since Julian started his campaign against me. Kevin stumbled through the backyard, waving a crowbar, his words slurred and angry. Leo, get out here, you bastard, he yelled. You ruined everything. I held my breath, trying to creep towards the stairs to get to a phone. But he was already inside, his wild eyes scanning the room. I know you're in here, he screamed, smashing a vase with the crowbar. I saw the security camera. You think you're so much better than me with all your money? He was getting closer, the stench of alcohol radiating off him. I had to do something. I made a move for the panic button on the wall, but my foot caught on a decorative sculpture, sending it clattering to the floor. There you are, Kevin roared, charging at me with the crowbar raised. I dodged just in time, the crowbar smashing into the wall where my head had been moments before. You're insane, I yelled, fumbling for the panic button. The police are on their way. Let them come, he snarled, swinging again. They can collect your body. The blare of the security alarm filled the penthouse. The noise seemed to enrage Kevin even more, and his attacks became more frantic. I wasn't a trained fighter, and it was all I could do to stay out of his reach. The crowbar grazed my arm, a searing pain shooting through me. Suddenly, the front door burst open. NYPD. Freeze. Several officers swarmed into the room. In Kevin's moment of shocked hesitation, I kicked the crowbar out of his hand. He was quickly subdued and taken into custody. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. That was too close. Are you all right, sir? An officer asked, helping me to my feet. I nodded, but before I could speak, another figure rushed into the room. It was Isabel, still in her pajamas, a coat thrown hastily over them. Leo, she cried, her face pale as she rushed to my side. You're hurt. I looked down to see blood soaking through my sleeve. It's just a scratch. That's not a scratch, she said, her voice trembling as she examined the gash. We have to get you to a hospital. After giving my statement to the police, Isabel insisted on driving me to the emergency room. She held my hand the entire time the doctor was stitching me up. How did you know to come? I asked. The security company called me, she said. I'm your emergency contact. I had forgotten I'd listed her. I'm so glad you're okay, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. If I had been a minute later, looking at her terrified face, a warmth spread through my chest. It was dawn by the time we left the hospital. Isabel insisted on coming back to my place to take care of me. I'm fine, really, I protested. It's just a few stitches. Don't argue, she said, gently pushing me onto the sofa. I'll make you something to eat. As I watched her in the kitchen, an apron tied around her waist, I had the strange feeling that we were a normal married couple. After I ate the surprisingly delicious soup she made, we sat on the sofa and watched the sunrise. Leo, she said suddenly, last night made me realize something. I turned to look at her. Life is too short to waste time hesitating, she said, her eyes meeting mine. I love you and I want to be with you. For real. No more acting. My heart pounded in my chest. The morning light illuminated her face, making her look vulnerable and sincere. But I'm not who you think I am, I stammered. She smiled. I know you're not perfect. You're scared, you hesitate, and sometimes you're a real coward. Hey, I started to protest. But that's the real you, she said, her voice soft but firm. The you who would risk his life to save a stranger. The you who believed in Mark Chun. The you who is afraid to admit his feelings for me. That you is worth more than any perfect persona. I was silent. Final choice. Host must make a decision within 10 minutes. Option A. Accept Isabel Sterling's feelings and forfeit your return to your original world. Option B. Reject Isabel, take the money, and leave. The system's countdown began. I looked at Isabel's hopeful face, then thought of the $8.5 million in my bank account. Stay and face the uncertainty of a real relationship. Leave and live a life of luxury, but alone? The countdown continued. 3:21, 3:20. Isabel, I finally said, there's something I have to tell you. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. I'm not who you think I am. I took a deep breath. I'm not an investment genius. It was all a lie. I'm not even the original Leo. She stared at me. What do you mean? I mean, I'm a fraud, I said with a bitter laugh. I don't know anything about investing. It was all luck and a few tricks. I don't deserve you. Saying the words out loud was a relief. I couldn't lie to her anymore. Isabel was silent for a long time. I thought she was going to get up and leave. But then she laughed. Is that it? I was stunned. What do you mean, is that it? I've known from the beginning, she said simply. From that ridiculous interview you gave. I was speechless. Then what? Because the man you became is real, she said, taking my hand. The man who stayed up all night learning about a project, who helped someone achieve their dream, who was there for me when I needed him. That man is worth more than any investment genius. The countdown was almost over. 10 seconds. 9. I looked into her eyes, and all I saw was love and acceptance. 8. 7. I thought about the past 3 months, about the way my carefully constructed walls had crumbled, about the way she had seen through my act and found the real me underneath. 6. 5. $8.5 million was a lot of money, but some things were priceless. 4. 3. I'm staying, I said to the system. 2. 1. Choice confirmed. Host has forfeited return to original world. New mission. Begin a new life. Reward. Skill truth seeker unlocked. Ability to discern others' true intentions. The countdown ended. The system went silent. I felt free. So, Isabel said, her eyes shining with hope. What's your answer? I took a deep breath and smiled, a real, genuine smile. Yes. Her face lit up. Really? Really? I said. On one condition. You have to teach me for real this time. And you can't get mad when I'm a slow learner. She laughed and threw her arms around my neck. Don't worry. Professor Sterling is very patient. We sat there, bathed in the morning sun, our laughter filling the room. Epilogue. 3 months later, I was officially the director of the Sterling Enterprises Investment Department, a title I had earned through hard work and late-night studying. I still needed Isabel's guidance, but I was no longer a fraud. After the acquisition, I used my share of the profits to start a small venture capital fund for aspiring entrepreneurs. Isabel said I had finally found my calling. As for the $8.5 million, I donated half of it to various charities and invested the rest. Isabel still teased me for being the most frugal millionaire she had ever met. One day, we walked past a coffee shop where I had first met Julian. Be honest, Isabel said, a playful glint in her eye. If I hadn't offered you more money back then, would you have really just taken the $5 million and left? I thought about it for a moment. Yes, I said honestly. She pretended to be offended. Just like that. I laughed and pulled her close. Yes, and I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. And I would have. But thankfully, I had made the right choice. I had chosen to stay. The sun was shining, and as we walked on, hand in hand, I knew that my new life was just beginning.